Meanwhile, FBI investigators and Minneapolis police are trying to determine a motive in the mass shooting at a Catholic school that left 2 children dead and 17 others wounded. The shooter fired through the windows of the school church where students were attending Mass. Last night, there was an outpouring of emotions during vigils in the city.
What I feel right now is a city that stands up for one another, that does the right thing by their community, and that recognizes that right now, while thoughts and prayers are great, they are not adequate. These children were literally praying at this moment.
The vigils drew thousands of people. The FBI says it's investigating the shooting as an act of domestic terrorism and hate crime targeting Catholics. The attack has renewed demands for stricter gun control. CNN's Lee Waldman is tracking this story from Minneapolis and tracking the investigation. She joins me now live. So, Lee, the director of the FBI has launched a hate crime and domestic terrorism investigation. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, we've asked local officials here, local law enforcement officials from the city of Minneapolis, if they were investigating this as a hate crime, as an act of terrorism. And they said right now it's too early to tell on that. There's no indication that this was targeted against the Catholic community itself, but they are investigating what appears to be 2 YouTube videos posted by the alleged shooter, timed to release around the timing of the shooting itself that happened here at the church. Now, we know in one of those videos it appears to show what law enforcement is calling a manifesto. And in it, there appears to be writings from the shooter with an obsession surrounding these school shootings. And another video that was posted, it showed names of school shooters written on those weapons. There was also a hand-drawn diagram of a sanctuary that appears to mirror the sanctuary that is inside of this church itself. We know that that shooter is a former student of this school and has familial ties with a former employee of the church and school itself. So this investigation is ongoing. 4 search warrants were issued so law enforcement can try and get to the bottom of what happened here.
And now, Lee, authorities say 17 others were injured, as you touched on, in the attack. Most of them were children. What is the latest on their condition?
So we know that 14 kids and 3 adults in their 80s were also hurt in this shooting. The kids, they range in age from just 6 years old to 15 years old. Now, all of them are expected to survive. Several have been discharged. Several are still being treated in the hospital for a variety of different injuries. We heard from a neighbor who said that he ran out to help after he heard the shots firing off in this church behind us. And in that, he came and saw children who were hurt, who had gunshot wounds. One child in particular shot in the neck. He said the child asked, "Please just hold my hand." And he held her hand and waited for the ambulance to come. So we know a variety of different injuries that doctors and nurses are working hard to treat now.
Thanks for this, Lee. That is CNN's Lee Waldman in Minneapolis. And also following this story for us is CBC's Linda Ward. She joins us here in studio. So tell us a little bit more about what we're learning on the community reaction.
Yeah, the community is still reeling from this, and even just hours after this happened, gathering for some of those vigils that we saw. But placing flowers this morning outside of the church, the school where this shooting happened, waking up to sort of the reality of all of this in this community. As we showed you earlier, there were hundreds and thousands really that showed up for those 2 vigils, one at the Minneapolis Lyndhurst Park, another inside of a nearby school gym, the Academy of Holy Angels. That's about 3 kilometers from the site of the shooting. They crowded inside, hundreds more waiting outside. There wasn't even enough room in that space for everyone that wanted to be there to just try and make sense of the shooting of children being shot as they prayed, there to support each other and turning to their faith at this time. There were prominent lawmakers in attendance, politicians, and the Archbishop who spoke to the crowd.
Something that has an impact on our whole community. the much broader community, on our whole state, on our whole country. What we do together tonight is to pray. And we look for the words that are able to express inexpressible grief.
And he shared also a message from the Vatican, from Pope Leo, who, of course, is an American, sending this telegram to the Minneapolis Archbishop, expressing his heartfelt condolences and the assurance of spiritual closeness to all those affected by this terrible tragedy, especially the families now grieving the loss of a child.
And now, Linda, as is the case when there's any mass shooting in the United States, there's the discussion of whether or not it's possible to tighten gun legislation to prevent something like this from happening.
Yeah, and we're hearing a lot of people speaking out about that in this instance as well, saying that it's possible this could have been avoided. They believe if there were tighter gun laws in the United States. One of those speaking out at the vigil last night was Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison, who's calling for an all-out ban on assault rifles.
My thoughts and what I'm thinking about is a national ban on assault rifles. My prayer is a national ban on these assault rifles. And you should know that when we used to ban them assault rifles, we used to keep a lot more people alive than we do now. We need to think and pray about banning these weapons of war.
And many saying, again, thoughts and prayers aren't enough, that more needs to be done. The FBI, as you mentioned, they're investigating this as domestic terrorism and a hate crime. We also heard from Director Kash Patel, who said the shooter identified as transgender. Now, we're seeing some reaction to this on social media today. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry saying that people have used this to spread hate towards the trans community, and calling that out and saying instead of doing that, we should be operating out of a place of love for the children who were lost, focusing on them and focusing on the community and helping the community get through their grief.
Okay, thank you for this. That is the CBC's Linda Ward.